Get the Friendo Club set up today and get access to over 700 Going In Raw bonus episodes, our monthly Big Blue predictions challenges, and the ability to ask questions at Going In Raw. We also offer the Steven Larson comic book and exclusive Friendo Club t-shirt. Just hit join here at youtube.com/Steven Larson or go to patreon.com/Steven Larson to sign up. Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
Hey, Larson.
And welcome back to Steven Larson's Pro Wrestling Podcast, ruining pro wrestling podcasts since 2014. And it's Wednesday, which means we're going to be taking a look at your hot takes from the world of pro wrestling. A lot going on these days, so let's go ahead and start off with this. And I'm going to read this one simply because I want to read this name, Larson. I'm going to deprive you from reading this name.
Man.
Sorry. Daddy Thick Cheeks 9727.
I was looking forward to reading that.
Would you go ahead and say it? It's a fun name.
Daddy Thick Cheeks.
Says this. CM Punk is everything he ripped apart in his pipe bomb. He's the Hogan taking spots from younger talent. Larson, let me ask you this.
Sure.
So on yesterday's show, we discussed the backstage details on the CM Punk apology in Saudi Arabia. And as you noted afterwards, we're sort of dancing around calling Phil a hypocrite because it's not on us to say that stuff. No. That being said, let me ask you this, and I want you to be as brutally honest as you can be.
All right.
I went back and I watched after the fact. I had already seen the apology, but I went back and I watched it again on the premise that the guy, that Muhammad, the gentleman who demanded the apology, was like a plant of some sort, or they arranged this. Mm-hmm. I went back and I watched this guy. How do you think 2010 CM Punk would have responded? Because I don't know if you watched the actual apology, but
I did. Yeah.
That guy was pretty, like, demonstrative. There was some finger wagging at Punk and some very seemingly demanding language of him. How would 2011 Punk have responded to this guy finger wagging him?
Probably quite a bit different than 2025 Punk did.
Probably.
Gosh, there's so much going on here. I mean, Punk being a hypocrite is kind of the topic du jour of late, isn't it, huh?
It is. There's a lot of debate over, him doing this, and it's not helped by Paul Levesque getting on the post show and saying he's grown a lot as a human being.
I mean, it's a series of events. It's the apology. It's the Punk life segment on SmackDown, which I know some people liked. You and I were.
That's like kind of split down the middle. A lot of people like that.
Yeah. And then the Triple H statements.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Well, you know what we can do to sort of save you some strife here, having to rip it all apart. This particular from Daddy Thick Cheeks, says specifically he's the Hogan taking spots from younger talent. I mean, that's one thing that, he had said before when he's talking about Cardona and Cesaro and, even Danielson. He felt that younger talent were being held down, and he was one of those talents who he thought he should be in the position that, for example, The Miz was in.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see him
or the
now?
Year of WrestleMania 30, Batista. I mean, he and Batista are friends. I remember when he talked about in the Art of Wrestling podcast, he was like, clear, no heat to Batista. They're friends. But as a situation, it's obviously Bryan Danielson's year.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
He should be in the main event. But anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt that.
Do you think that CM Punk's position right now is holding others back? He main evented night one along with Seth and Roman. Or do you think he's just being slotted where he probably should be slotted as a main event player?
If you look how Triple H is approaching the top of the card in the men's division, he is relying on... We're going to talk about this more later on. He's relying almost exclusively on talents who are 35 years old and up.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
You got Roman, you got Seth, you got Punk, you got Orton,
even
you got Cody.
Yeah.
You got Drew McIntyre, John Cena for the rest of this year. every one of those individuals is a seasoned veteran in this business and probably have more career behind them than they do ahead of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With exception with a couple maybe a couple people. That's Triple H's approach now. He's relying on those names to put at the top of the marquee to sell these major shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, Triple H doesn't seem, apart from maybe Braun Breaker, Triple H is not investing a lot of TV time building up and developing younger stars to be future main eventers. So I don't know, like, I don't necessarily think Punk is taking spots from younger talent right now, specifically because I don't think Triple H is giving those spots to younger talent right now.
The emphasis on wrestlers who have built equity, and this is interesting again, I don't want to get too deep into the conversation, we'll be here all day, but I was actually thinking about this last night in my car of all places, because somebody had asked over WrestleJizz, did like an ask thing, they asked, are there any modern artists that you're listening to right now? And the best I could come up with was like, I have been listening to Kendrick Lamar's latest album quite a bit. Kendrick ain't new. Dude's been doing what he's doing. I mean, he blew up in what, around 2012, something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Why is it that in 1991, you'd be listening to Nirvana, a group that got together in what, 88, 89, something like that?
Yeah, I mean...
87, 88 maybe?
Yeah, probably mid-late 80s, yeah.
Which is the equivalent to listening to a band now that got together in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of any acts necessarily. Now, in pop music, probably Sabrina Carpenter was probably broke through, what, I don't know, 2 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
But when you look at 1998 in wrestling, yeah, a bunch of these dudes have like broke in around 1990 or so, but they really only achieved that relevancy 2-3 years earlier, maybe. I know Austin was in WCW obviously as a very, very like mid card guy, not even upper mid card. Like he was a mid card guy.
Yeah, between holding like the U.S. title, and
he flirted with the upper mid card, maybe you know
titles. Yeah.
But there was that sense, like Rocky was like what, 23 years, 24, something like that. He was super young, very young, and so you had a lot of really young, vital talent that really just exploded within a matter of like 12 to 24 months. And now, and I wonder if it's a function of the way pop culture is so segmented and it takes a lot longer for things to break through. But once you, and on top of that, athletes take a lot better care of their bodies.
Yeah.
But these days, there is such more of a reliance in the men's division, which always gets the main event slot for good or bad. But especially with the men, they're much more reliant on that brand name equity that they've built up over a decade plus, as opposed to anybody who can break through in a matter of 2 years. Like that just doesn't happen anymore. And I don't know the exact reason why. But it does seem to be, maybe it's a matter of like everything is nostalgia these days, you know, or everything is a long-term investment on your entertainment dollar. You know, even TV shows that used to be, hey, you're jamming out 26 episodes a year. Nowadays, it's like, well, you get 10 episodes, then you got to wait 2 years to get the next season. Mm-hmm. I think there's something there. But maybe that's why they're relying on that equity that's been built up for a very, very long time. And CM Punk is simply in a same position as all the other names that we just listed. You know, Drew McIntyre didn't just show up yesterday. Cody Rhodes didn't just show up yesterday. And so I think that's just a function of what they're pushing, and that's how they sell out many of the venues that they sell out.
Yeah, you know, it is a situation where that's just the creative approach from the men's division. Hey, we're going to focus on these, 8 names, 7, 8, 9 names. And those are going to be the performers from the men's division side of things that drives the business. And
they are super popular. Like those pops are huge. Randy Orton gets still to this day massive pops.
Yeah. But of course, that's coming at the expense of developing younger talent. But again, this isn't a situation where Punk's coming in and taking a spot necessarily from. It's not like Braun Breaker was going to be in the triple threat at WrestleMania with Seth and Roman. Whatever Braun was doing at WrestleMania, he would have done the same thing whether Punk was there or not.
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like those spots are to be had for younger talent to be at this juncture. Now this first part of this, Punk is everything he ripped apart his pipe bomb. That's something else entirely. But it's speaking specifically about the second aspect of this question. No, I don't know. I don't. In this situation, I think it's different. I don't think it's a situation like a WCW where there was a lot of up and coming talent who was on the precipice of doing huge things, potentially in the main event, and there was other performers kind of actively trying to keep them out of it. That's not the situation here, I don't think.
Let me ask you this now. It's funny because you're not going to not feature, because there were older dudes that they couldn't find stuff for. They didn't find relevancy for. Edge, Bobby Lashley, Christian, going back further. I mean, that was more of a McMahon
even you got
thing.
names like AJ Styles, who's involved, but not in anything huge.
Right. Is the fact that I still don't know. Nobody really, I don't know if there was really much published about the actual, negotiations for MJF, for example. You got to figure WWE would have taken him in a heartbeat, though. But if WWE somehow got their hands on MJF, Ospreay, and Swerve, and Okada, would it be a different story? Would those guys be further? Would there be spots for them in the main event scene? Would they be mixing it up there if they went after those guys? I don't know. I don't know if you can compare those guys to, like, for example, Penta, Phoenix, like Rusev, Aleister Black. Like, I kind of feel like that's not a fair comparison.
No,
those are recent signees from WWE.
Yeah, but they're all people that were in WWE before and came back,
right? Or in the case of Penta and Phoenix,
sorry,
they weren't sort of at the highs of, like, those three, the names that I mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, they achieved some measure of success in AEW, predominantly the tag division. But yeah, I mean, none of the names you mentioned were really serious world title contenders. To, like, Swerve, former champion, Ospreay, gonna be champion at some point. Same with Okada, gonna be AEW world champion at some point. So I don't know. You'd think with a name like Ospreay, when he hit the free agent market, if WWE had signed him, that would be, we're gonna roll out the red carpet for this guy.
You would think so, yeah.
Not only is he one of, if not the best wrestler in the world, we want to show would-be free agents, this is the place you want to come, because look what we're going to do. When they brought Ethan Page in from AEW, pretty much immediately put the NXT title on him. We thought, hey, this might be a signal to other people who are thinking of leaving AEW to come to the WWE, greater corporate umbrella. Come here and we're going to treat you well. Look at the success you can achieve, like, right away.
Do they need to get a move on with those guys, by the way, if they really want to make good on that? I mean, hey, you can't look at Penta and Phoenix and be like, hey, you know what? They're mixing it up with some bigger names right now.
I mean, Penta's involved in the A story on Raw right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah. But yeah, I feel like with Saints and Page, they probably need to get some movement on those guys.
Well, they're feuding with each other now, so
they're back feuding with each other.
Whoever loses that might very well be called up to Maine. Don't know.
Let's talk more about CM Punk. Shotgun Sean has a hot take, and he says, the Punk Cena feud was mostly awkward and at times pure cringe. Is this a cold take for you, Larson?
Yeah, it is. Honestly, I thought the only real highlight was Cena's pipe bomb. That was it. Like, Punk coming out to challenge him was like, all right, this feels like a formality. There wasn't any real creative way to go about it. It was just like, hey, I'm going to take that title off you, John.
It's turned you into a monster. I don't want that title, but I'm going to take it from you to save you people.
Yeah, no, it just wasn't the most inspired stuff. I thought Cena's pipe bomb, we talked about that plenty. I thought it was clever and creative enough that whatever shortcomings may have been there, I thought taking the structure of Punk's pipe bomb and kind of turning it around to show the hypocrisy of the character of CM Punk was pretty well done. we've been pretty vocal about not enjoying the Punk Life segment. We didn't really enjoy their match at Night of Champions either.
You know what I love is that somebody, I think because I talked about this at WrestleJuice, and somebody had said, I'm with you guys on the Rollins Fiend hot take, but I can't get behind you on this Punk Life one because I thought it was great. And I was like, you know what? You back us on the more important one, because we don't have anybody backing us on the Hell in a Cell Fiend match.
No.
But yeah, when people, you know what, dude, I'll be honest with you. I've seen enough people give praise to not just Punkonomics, but also to the match in general, Night of Champions, that I think ultimately, when all is said and done a couple years from now, this part of the of Cena's last run, I think will ultimately be more fondly remembered than not. Not by me,
no,
but I think by the general. I'm not going to say there's going to be a consensus on this because there's plenty of people who thought that Punk Life was cringe also, and that the match wasn't very good. But I do think that, there's going to be a significant part of the fan base who will look back on this as a highlight. I think it's going to be one of those things that's just a bit polarizing, a bit divisive.
I think so too.
But not so egregiously horrible that it's going to be like a big flashpoint of discussion. I just think that people are going to look back on it, and I think there's going to be a segment of people who are into it, and there are going to be a segment of people who are like, oh yeah, I wasn't really into that. But I don't think there is anything so big or so bad, so good or so awesome or so awful. Boy, that Punkonomics was hard to watch though.
It was. And I get the idea that, it was purposely supposed to be cringe because Cena's promos back there then were cringe, but I feel like there's a clever way to do that you can kind of poke more fun at the cringe rather than saying, hey, look how cringe I am, to show how cringe you were.
Yeah.
Like, be a little more clever about it. That was kind of my beef. It was like, I'm just going to be cringe like you and it's talk some kind of surface level shit. Whereas I felt like Cena was really going for, hey, what you, the fans, understand about CM Punk is not who he is. And for me, that was the difference between the two in terms of the substance of it.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think, I'll let me say this. This will be my one, I don't know. I will say that I almost admire going all in, so to speak, on that segment.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do something,
go all the way. Yeah.
Go all the way with it. And if it fails or it succeeds, and in a lot of people's mind, Punk Life succeeded. And I think a lot of people thought it was super cringe. But if you're going to do something, I guess go all the way with it. And they did go all the way with it.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to give them credit for that, I guess.
Hot take here from Hello Empty Bus Seat. Says, Wyatt 6 are so far the biggest flop and mishandling of the Triple H booking experiment.
Given the possibilities involved, given the potential, it's hard not, and you have to take any knowledge that we think we might have about injuries or anything like that. If you take that out of it, because I have no idea what's going on backstage, but just with what we've been presented on television, I think this might be spot on. I don't know if there's been, look, you can look at maybe the lack of follow through on the New Day heel turn.
Yep.
That's, I think, high up there.
Oh, yeah.
But, there was a lot of interest in the potential for what they could have done with Bo Dallas and the idea of grieving his brother and how that manifests itself. And that one shot that I thought was really going to kick something off when Bo Dallas was waiting at Adam Pearce's office. And then nothing.
Nothing.
It was really disappointing. So I would probably give this my vote.
It would definitely be high up there if we were doing like a ranked thing. Because you mentioned the squandering of the momentum of the New Day heel turn. Remember when Lashley and the Street Profits first started kind of joining forces?
Yeah.
And the crowd was super into it.
Yeah.
And they did nothing with it.
Yeah.
Another squandered opportunity. Like there's been a number of them, for all of I'll give Triple H credit from a creative standpoint in terms of bringing a bit more logic and a bit more of a through line for his characters, and that's been consistent since day one for him. But there's been several opportunities where he has something that you're like, this could be really good.
I'll say this for the Bobby and Profits one. He wanted to make them bad guys.
Uh-huh.
And once he realized that there was no way that he could accomplish that creatively, he was like, oh, I don't know what to do with this then. And then he just let Bobby go. He just let him not resign. And so at least that was a situation where it was like, hey, I got this idea. They're going to be bad guys. But the crowd wouldn't comply because they love Bobby Lashley so much.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get it. But like the thing about the Wyatt Six is that it's like, he really, like, the crowd responded with exactly what you want. They were eating it up. And then it was just dropped. And it's like, you've got creative minds back there. You got Rob Fee, like, who I think, I don't know. From whatever people talking about Rob Fee, it seemed like this is like the one thing the guy was tasked with doing was like giving us some good shit with the Wyatts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure he does lots of other stuff. But, he was heavily associated with that, like the QR code stuff, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, dude, you got us. You have us desperate for more. It's like you didn't have us desperate for more heel Bobby Lashley. We wanted Bobby Lashley killing people and being awesome.
Yeah, you run with that, though. That's the thing.
I know, but I understand. Boy, I'm not getting the reactions that I want here. I don't really know what to do with him in this, getting these reactions. I get it. Like wrestling is about like getting the reaction that you want.
It's about getting a reaction and finding a way to use that to tell stories.
Well, that's what you say. Evidently, he thinks otherwise. And so like, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I get it. It's like, oh man, I'm gonna make this guy a big bad guy and have him in there against Cody Rhodes. Good luck with that. Good luck with them booing Bobby Lashley against Cody Rhodes. They weren't going to do that. All right. Well, I don't really know what to do with them. Well, that's on you, but okay. I guess I can respect that.
It is on Triple H and the creative team. Yeah.
But with the Wyatts, you had us. You had the exact reactions what you wanted. Can we get more of that, please?
Apparently not.
And now they're in the tag division.
Doesn't make any sense. Hot take here from Kadeem Jones says both Evolution Premium Live events builds haven't been great. Feels like a thrown together at the last minute type of build. So I was looking at it. The WWE's, we can call them Premium Live event or special TV special schedule since WrestleMania. So you had WrestleMania towards the end of April. And then basically 3 weeks later, you got Backlash. All right. 3 weeks later, you got Saturday night's main event. And then about a week later, you have Money in the Bank. And then that brings us to Night of Champions. So in about 2 months' time, what is that, 6 shows? They're jamming a lot of shows which should have major implications for their stories within a very compact amount of time. Usually every 2 or 3 weeks, we're getting something that's supposed to be, in some respects, impactful. Doesn't leave a whole lot of time between those shows to build to anything.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I get WWE, they're popular right now. They want to try to get as much out there as they can because it's probably beneficial for business. But at the same time, I don't know if having a huge show every 2 or 3 weeks is beneficial from the creative side of things to build to some of these stories.
All right. I know you'll accuse me once again of being a Triple H apologist.
Oh, never.
I will say this, though.
I would never call you such.
I will say this, though. You literally did already.
That was a joke.
I will say this. They are only 5-match cards. And so, yes, 6 cards in 2 months. It's kind of like 3 normal cards in 2 months, which is a little bit less egregious. For example, Backlash featured the Women's Intercontinental Championship in a match. The following Saturday night's main event, which happened right afterwards, had the Women's United States Championship in a match. I don't have these things side by side, but like one had a Cena title match, the other had a Jey Uso title match. So they got a big ass roster with lots of titles, and they only do 5 matches per card, generally speaking. Sometimes they'll throw a 6th one in there. So, and then, you know, you got the stip matches, the Money in the Bank matches. That takes up 2/3 of a whole pay-per-view. So, yeah, they have been. The July 12th weekend is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because you got Evolution, Saturday night's main event. And the thing about Evolution, although, I mean, Evolution has been building. They announced it, and what matches? Okay, so wait. There's one that they're setting up on SmackDown, which is kind of out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, no. Well, I don't want to get into it, but it's not kind of out of nowhere. It's just coming together really quick. Yeah.
The Stratton match.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has not been. That's being set up on Friday for next week's Evolution.
The match itself, but I mean, what led to it? There's stuff that happened a while ago.
That makes some amount of okay. What else is happening? Okay, Rhea versus Io just got set up on Raw. That came out of nowhere, and we were confused by it. I'm not gonna
title.
It was a good match, but
Could be great. Yeah, the tag title 4-way.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, that's just sort of like
Battle Royal.
And granted, here's the other thing to think about.
Creative
Evidently, Liv Morgan. Liv
Yeah.
Morgan was the entire linchpin for this thing because everything else falls apart without her versus Nikki Bella being in that match. So that is a consideration.
It is.
And they did try to set that up weeks ago. So who knows what dominoes that affected. According to Sean Ross Sapp, like the entire thing blew up when she got injured, which I find difficult to believe, but who am I to disagree? You know?
Yeah, because it would have been her and Raquel defending the tag title, seemingly.
Yeah, I guess it'd be her and Raquel versus the Bellas, but you know, wouldn't you? How is that going to affect Io versus Rhea? That's not going to affect that match, or Tiffany versus what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that this week on Raw, a week and 2 weeks before, less than 2 weeks before the show, we actually got like 3 matches or 4 matches announced or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's a bit out of nowhere. That's a bit out of nowhere.
It is. It's just too much. They're trying to do too much, Steve.
Yeah, but then you got these 5-match cards, you know. I'd rather they be spread out like this than like a 10-match card
Every month.
Eating up my whole freaking day, and I'm exhausted.
Well,
it
used to be once a month you had a 5 or 6 match card before the Saturday night's main events became a thing.
Yeah, and then Saturday nights became a thing. You know, we want something between WrestleMania and SummerSlam. Now it used to be the summer doldrums.
Yeah, now it's just
all you can eat.
It's quantity. Yeah.
It's like a Golden Corral.
Yeah. Avery Wash here with the hot take says Triple H needs to invest in making young men stars now, or else he'll end up with the same problem Vince had in the early 2010s.
Yeah, this is something we've been saying for a while now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 5 years from now, you think Cody's still going to be there?
5 years from now? Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
I think Cody and Seth will still be there. Cody, Seth, and Randy Orton will still be there.
You're probably right about Randy.
Yeah.
He just signed a new 5-year deal.
Yeah, I think he said he wanted to wrestle another 5 or 10 years.
I think he wants to sign another one after that, too.
Yeah.
After the one that he just signed.
Yeah.
What else, Sammy?
I don't know.
I think if his body holds up, he will.
Yeah, maybe.
How about Jey Uso?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah?
Yeah, probably.
I think 5 years from now, Braun Breaker has to have broken into the main event scene. I don't know about Bronson Reed, but Braun Breaker for sure.
Yeah, Braun Breaker for sure. They've invested some creative energy in terms of building him up as a main event guy, yeah.
I think Dom has the ceiling for it as a character. I think he's got Eddie Guerrero levels of character on the way. And I think he's becoming really fun in the ring too. You got the NXT trio. Javon, Oba, and Trick. it's impossible to mess up. At the very least, it's impossible to mess up on Trick and Oba. Impossible. They're surefire.
Heck,
I think Javon should be,
yeah.
but I kind of feel like they won't unless he's either going to be like RVD or they'll be like, oh, you're too skinny. And you'll be a perpetual Intercontinental Champion guy.
Yeah. Yeah, if they look at him as like he's a really good wrestler, then yeah, maybe the ceiling is Intercontinental Champion. But he is a really good character. He's a really good all around performer.
Dude, I think he comes off as so genuine and relatable.
Yep. He is basically NXT's Will Ospreay.
Yeah, I know. And if he puts on Ospreay muscle too, then he'll be fine. He'll be fine. I don't see how you mess up on those three guys.
No, I don't either.
But who knows?
Benny Omega here says Triple H can only book great singular moments, but can't book long-term stories after those moments. The New Day heel turn itself was fantastic, but they fumbled everything after. You could argue the same for Cena's heel turn, the debut with the White Six, and even Seth's turn with Heyman at WrestleMania.
I don't know about fumbling Seth. Seth's a big deal right now.
This whole story doesn't feel that interesting, though.
But the thing about that is, I feel like that can change with one segment.
They gotta get to it though.
One glance from Braun Breaker. Well, they gotta execute the first step. I actually got some faith that they're gonna nail the Seth stuff because I think they have a real plan there. But look, I'm not gonna. Plenty of other stuff. He's just like, it's like you wind it up. And then you put it down and just let it go. Wind the other one up, put it down, let it go. This is Austin Theory, Grayson Waller stuff. Let's wind this and keep winding it. Let's crank this. When you get one of those little wind up toys and you go as far as you can, it starts going.
Yeah. You feel like you're gonna break the thing inside. Yeah. That's
Waller in Theory.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Crowds are starting to turn him into Daniel Bryan. They're starting to chant his name, dude. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a Triple H can only book great singular moments. I'll be honest with you. I actually enjoy the stuff that he's doing with Judgment Day. And it's been like just sort of a low-key soap opera going on in Judgment Day for a while. And every time they show up on the screen, I'm like, oh, cool, it's Judgment Day.
Yeah.
But, he does let things just fucking go. And, I'll circle back around that to when I'm, interested.
And jam months of story into 3 weeks sometimes.
Yeah, he's still figuring things out, man. He's still new. He's still new on the job, Larson.
We got one more Triple H hot take here from Obafemi.
Darula.
Says Triple H is the most overrated booker. He's not bad, but if we credit all stories to the booker, he isn't better or worse than Tony Khan. Vince set the bar so low that you could only improve.
So here's what Tony Khan would do. He would, what's a good toy analogy for what Tony Khan does? He just blind reaches into his box of action figures. We got an all-star 8-man tag here. Just go ahead and put all those guys.
He puts money on the line, and then it makes it interesting because he's walking away with the money. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, for 4 million pesos. He's gotten much better.
Yeah,
Tony Khan has improved as a booker.
Yeah.
But there was a period of time when it was clear this dude, and maybe it has something to do with like the various off seasons of the other things that he's involved in. But yeah, Tony Khan, generally speaking, I think Triple H has always had, because he's been obviously wielding some sort of booking power of some sort or another since 1998 or late 97 when he was like, take the title off of Brett. I think Triple H does have a natural ability to understand how to pace stories out between pay-per-views, the old Vince way of doing things, which is a language that works. And I think it took Tony a while to figure that out. And I still don't think that he's great at it, but I think he's very good at it. Mm-hmm. There are definitely still too many matches. That's why I still don't really watch Collision, because there's a lot of rando shit that goes on there that just sort of seems repetitive.
Yeah. Next hot take here from Mikey Omega says, just because a match has a special stipulation doesn't mean it should be no DQ and someone's faction needs to get involved. Triple H disagrees.
You sounds like something I would say. Yeah, why is every time, dude? Every time we talk about either a triple threat that's coming up, or if we're doing a watch along and there's a triple threat, always like, oh yeah, it's no DQ, so they can just do this. It's no DQ, so they can just, it's just a blank check.
It really
to
is.
write whatever bullshit you want to write.
Here's the thing: even if it's a one-on-one match, guess what? Ref bump. Do whatever the fuck you want at that point. You know?
Yeah.
Like this is a thing Triple H likes. He likes having his factions, and he likes having the overbooked stuff. And whether it be in a triple threat match, a no DQ match, four corners match, even a one-on-one match with ref bump. If there's a means by which a faction can get involved, a faction is going to get involved.
You know, he loves factions. You know what would be interesting? Give me triple.
It's like Triple H watched House of Torture do one of their matches and said, "That's how you do it."
How great would it be if he tried to hire all of House of Torture over to? I don't even know who's in it. I did see a great shot of Sonata wearing something that looked like the Giant Gonzalez's WrestleMania 9 outfit.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh, this is the Sonata I didn't know I needed.
Yeah.
And he had a cigar too.
Oh my gosh. They're finally cracking Sonata after all these years, huh?
Yeah, right? Yeah, it seems like it. Remember, everybody's like, oh, he's going to leave. That's why they're not pushing him. I'm like, well, that hasn't happened in 6 years. This is what I would love to see in a triple threat's going to be no DQ because there's 3 dudes there, I guess. That's the logic there. So anything goes, which is stupid. But like a triple threat really should just be endless, if it's dudes anyways, endless just trying to kick each other in the balls. Because that is still, I think, probably the most protected form of, it's like chair shot to the head or kick to the balls.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Have WWE ever explained the logic of why a triple threat's no DQ?
I'm trying to think, isn't there like a common sense answer to this?
I'm sure there is. I'm just wondering within the universe of WWE why that's the case.
You know what I would love to lock down? When the first time they did, and the sucky thing is you can't now because they took so many of the fucking episodes off internet, like not streaming. But the first time, and it had to have been like on a Raw, the first time they did an unmotivated camera private conversation bit. I would love to nail down when that happened. Mm-hmm. And if there was any thought process behind like, why would a camera be here? Because they've done plenty of shit where it's like, oh, backstage interview. That's been going on for fucking ever, right?
Yeah.
But like to have the camera there, there's no interview going on. It's just 2 people talking to each other. But similarly, I'm kind of curious, like what was the first triple threat?
Yeah.
And did they specify at that time? Well, there's 3 people here, so technically 2 can gang up on them, so you might as well bring out everybody, It's like
I
2 people
feel like
can
that's
gang
a
up on
stretch
one.
if that's the lone motivation.
Big stretch.
Triple threat.
Why is it you can get a chair?
No DQ. Yeah. Like, if anything, if you want to make sure you have a decisive winner of a triple threat match, you should really make sure the rules are followed to the letter.
Yeah, right.
Is it simply a situation where the referee can't keep track of what 3 people are doing, and they're like, whatever, fuck it. Rule book out the window.
Get a second ref.
Yeah.
1 ref per participant. Get 3 out there.
There you go.
Yeah.
1 in the ring, 2 on the floor.
Yeah, it is weird. It's a really bizarre thing, but I feel like that warrants some research.
Hot take here from the Tribal Game says SmackDown is B show riding with an A show roster.
Well, you know what? I got good news for you. It's going back to 2 hours this week, baby.
It'd be a 2-hour B show riding with still a roster.
I mean, I looked at the spoilers. I'm not going to spoil anything. But I looked at the spoilers. Wasn't terribly impressed, but maybe it's in the nuance, as you said the other day, that I'm missing. So maybe when I watch it on Saturday or Sunday, whenever I watch it, the 2-hour will be a revelation and it'll be urgent again. Raw was a lot of fun though this week. Throw LA Knight in any situation, you're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah. So apparently, this is like just simply, Google's AI. But apparently, triple threat matches are no DQ because of the disqualification that it's hard to determine a winner.
So if you go up to Hilton, kick him in the balls, then ref DQs you, then
Well,
it's
then
a
Hilton
one
should
on.
be awarded the win because he was the one that was cheated on, right?
Oh yeah, but then I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So why am I losing that match?
That's why he just declared a no contest.
Yeah, yeah.
If that's the lone rationale for making triple threat matches all no DQ, that's pretty weak.
Maybe it's just easier to say that than like, yeah, I don't know. We'll have to do some more research on that. SmackDown is a B show writing. Yeah, well, they didn't know how to do a 3-hour show, and plus you have Road Dogg there, so maybe change that.
Yeah.
Well, you got Road Dogg running SmackDown when you have HBK there doing a good job with NXT. Why don't you promote HBK?
Maybe Sean is just really happy in Orlando and just wants to keep working in NXT.
I love being in Florida, boss. Matthew Mills says the Becky Lyra storyline is super boring and isn't really doing anything for either woman who deserved better. Wrong answer. Next.
Yeah, I don't agree with this one at all. I think this specifically for Lyra, this is doing a lot for her. Actually, giving her an opportunity to showcase herself as a character, which she wasn't really given before.
I'm really intrigued on this whole Bayley Lyra thing. It's like, oh shit, I don't even know who's in the right, who's in the wrong here. That's what I really like about it.
Exactly.
It's like you got bad guy Becky, but then you got Lyra and Bayley both kind of acting like assholes to each other.
Yep.
And you can see both points of view. That's good stuff.
It is.
That's good stuff. And the match was really good the other night.
All the matches have been great.
All the matches have been really good.
This is a take I 1,000% agree with. Uncle Funkle says, if you want to get a friend into wrestling, don't show them your favorite match or a 5-star classic. Take them to an indie show. 1,000%.
Hard agree.
Yeah.
Hard agree on this one. Specifically, take him to one of those like deathmatch shows where it's just horrific violence.
No.
Syringes, light
off wrestling
tubes.
forever.
Ideally, a really irresponsible indie show where they do the light tube and then it cracks over the dude's head, but then it flies in it. God, what did I see the other day on like Instagram? It wasn't like a deathmatch thing, or maybe it was, but like some giant, what was it, like a ladder or something, went like falling down into the crowd, and luckily it was like, you know, a younger lady of some sort who was able to, you know, she had, like fell on her, but it wasn't that big of a deal. But I was like, God damn, y'all need to really, some of these indie shows, man, they're crazy. Not Action Coast Wrestling. Action Coast Wrestling is the shit. That's where you should be taking your friends to go check out that shit.
Yep.
Yeah, out of Pacheco, sometimes here in Sacramento as well, of course, is the promotion that me and Larson, we own it for its owners.
Yeah.
Let's probably do a better job promoting that stuff.
Yeah, we really probably should.
Yeah. Anyways. All right, Larson, it's time. I added this new section here prior to the Steven Larson takes. These are the coldest takes. I thought I would reward the people who got the most thumbs up for having some cold takes that people agree with. They got the thumbs up. It means people agree with them. So therefore, they're coldest takes. It's a weird thing because like this is supposed to be for hot takes, controversial takes, not popular takes.
Yeah.
This is a popular take. And shit, I don't have the name here. Gosh darn it.
Here. All right. Well, I'll read it. You want to try to find the name while I read it?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Seth Rollins does not need Paul Heyman. Their alliance isn't going anywhere. All the things the faction has done is still viable without Heyman. The writers have underused the wise man.
This is from Push Car, by the way.
Thank you. Heyman's inclusion in the Seth thing, I think, is predominantly to add more emotional weight to the fact that we're going to have a Roman-Seth feud at some point soon. That betrayal is obviously a huge thing with Roman. Drives him, makes him super insecure, and I think that's one aspect of the alliance with Seth. Yeah, I don't really feel like the Seth plus Heyman alliance is really adding much to what they're doing at this juncture. Heyman added a ton to the bloodline, but also we're not getting a whole lot of the interpersonal dynamics between the four people involved in Seth's faction as of yet. We need that because that's what add richness to the bloodline saga. So start doing it here. Come on, Triple H.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
When they did that, what was the point of the bit in the gorilla position?
Braun's like, I want to go and wreck people. Woof.
Like, I know it's a small thing and it made me laugh, but it's inclusion, and Paul Heyman seemingly not having, at least in the case of Braun Breaker. Now, it would have been nice if Bronson Reed wasn't so casual about everything. But maybe, and this is, again, Triple H apologies, maybe that was the smallest indication that, Paul Heyman doesn't really have the kind of control over these guys that maybe he'd like to have. Seth's out of the picture, and he's like, hey, we got this plan B coming up. Braun Breaker's like, ooh, I got my plan. Spear everybody now. And Paul Heyman's like, oh, shit. Maybe they're going to, you can only hope, I guess, dude, that they're going to get to it, because there's some stuff that you can mine there, but yeah, they got to start getting to it. But maybe that was one small indication.
That could be, because it's been months since we had that thing backstage where something happened, and Braun was like, I don't get it. And Heyman explains it to him.
Yeah.
As far as seeing how all the pieces fall into place in terms of what Seth and Heyman are trying to accomplish.
It would be the smartest thing in the world just to give us some more backstage stuff where you start to understand what's Bronson Reed's motivation. Why is he cool with Braun Breaker seemingly taking the A henchman spot? What's Braun Breaker think of Seth Rollins, really? Is he listening to Paul Heyman? These are all questions that I have, and I want answers.
Yeah.
Ryan Onori has a cold take because it was thumbs up a lot. Although Liv has been an amazing heel, she should return as a babyface. Oh, wow. That's actually a really good take. Yeah. Her winning the Rumble after being Queen of the Rumble and Chamber runner-ups the past few years would be a great redemption arc for her.
I think Queen, Rumble, and Chamber runner-ups.
Oh, gotcha. Her win. Okay. It might get to the point where she's not going to have much of a choice but to be a babyface, because she is putting in, before her injury especially, she was putting in really good work. I think the crowd was starting to acknowledge that shit. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if upon her return, if they start doing something along those lines. Ronan the analyst here with hot takes is Steve and Larson are failing miserably at ruining pro wrestling podcasting. They are the most fun wrestling podcasters out there.
I was really disappointed. I thought there would be, because like last week there was like a pretty, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, there was like a pretty savage anti-Steven Larson take. This is a very positive one. We're the most fun wrestling. Do you think we're the most fun?
We gotta be less fun then.
I feel like there's probably others that are more fun in terms of the podcast than us.
Who?
Deadlock.
Yeah, they're more fun than us.
They're probably really, yeah. I've heard enough of their stuff. They laugh a lot.
Yeah, they do.
They have a lot of fun.
They do have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I guess we have to approach this like we would just a basic office job. Obligation. And doing it strictly for the paycheck.
Yeah, right.
And maybe at that point, we'll accomplish our goal of ruining pro wrestling podcasting. I mean, if nothing else, we'll ruin Stephen Larson Pro Wrestling Podcast.
Yeah. If we approach it that way, yeah. I'm kind of wondering what that would sound like. Probably miserable.
Yeah.
Boy. I mean, you can go back to, 2018? We used to do it at 9 o'clock in the morning, and maybe you get a sample of that.
That's probably a good approximation of what it would be, yeah.
I don't know. I feel like we laugh too much for that to be the case anymore.
Yeah.
All right, man. It's time for our grunge take, Larson. Are you excited? Get hyped.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. This is from Jeff. Jeff says, Pearl Jam was too clean cut to be called grunge. Continues. Pearl Jam had stadium rock energy and classic rock aesthetics. Their polished production was more in line with Springsteen than with Seattle's muddy angst. Remember I said earlier about like when you were listening to Nirvana in 91, you're listening to a band had been together for like maybe 5 years. When you're listening to Pearl Jam in 91, they'd been together for like a couple days.
Yeah.
Like like Eddie came on late.
Yeah. I mean, if you're only going by 10, you could say, their production was super polished. Everything after 10 is a lot more stripped down in terms of production. Like, it's not as obvious as 10, but Nevermind is really produced.
Oh, yeah.
It's a densely packed record in terms of like guitar overdubs, multi-tracking vocals, all that kind of stuff. That stuff that Nirvana didn't do with In Utero, obviously, because they wanted a more stripped down thing, so they went record with Steve Albini.
I wonder if Jeff is talking about production versus atmosphere, maybe. Does 10 sound too clean to you from a, I don't know, instrumental standpoint?
It sounds thin. Like the guitars sound thin on 10. That's one thing I don't like about it. Guitars don't have any heft to them. Now, I guess the thing about grunge is a very broad label. It generally just means kind of music from the Pacific Northwest, specifically from Seattle.
It basically means 4 bands and their various offshoots.
Yeah. 5. I'd include Mudhoney in there. Because you think about what grunge is, of all the bands that are grunge, Mudhoney might be most grunge.
Yeah, but like, dude, nobody knows who they are.
But we know who they are anyways.
We know who they are.
Because obviously you had Nirvana, which Kurt was equally inspired by punk rock and the Beatles.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So you had the melodic sensibilities of
the
Beatles or, other 60s rock acts, plus the energy of punk rock. Whereas Pearl Jam,
and you got like the heft of like Sabbath,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in their early stuff. Mm-hmm. With Pearl Jam, obviously they listened to a lot of Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And classic rock and Aerosmith. I was watching a thing the other day where Mike McCready's talking about how much he likes Aerosmith.
Oh, the Becky Lynch clip, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right. You sent that to me. Yeah. So yes, obviously Pearl Jam, like Eddie Vedder's favorite band is The Who.
Dad used to clown because he listened to oh God, what's this? Which one is the Zeppelin song that Pearl Jam?
Oh, Forgiven to Fly?
Forgiven to Fly, yeah.
It's Going to California.
Going to California. I was trying to remember which one Going to California was. Pearl Jam, yeah. But Given to Fly, Dad was like, this is just Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it's not. And then I actually listened to it. I was like, oh, this is totally Zeppelin. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I just hate it when he was right.
Yeah.
Because my dad was an asshole about that stuff.
And then Soundgarden and Alice in Chains were more into metal, obviously.
Mm-hmm, yeah. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I listen to it. I hear a guy who just got with the band a couple weeks ago and he's like really hungry. And that to me is grunge. That to me is like one aspect. It's like, oh no, that's this dude. He wants some food. He's really skinny. He's doing stunts to try to make a name for himself. He's like climbing the truss and everything.
Yeah.
And a Backstreet Lover on the side of the road. I got a pocket. I'm ready to explode.
Yeah,
oh my God. You got a bomb in your temple and you're going to explode? That's fucked up.
Yeah. So the thing
that's grunge to me.
The grunge bands is regardless of whatever their primary inspirations might have been, it was a synthesis of like various forms of rock music. And that's I think is what, at its core, it's the synthesis of whether it's classic rock, metal, punk, whatever, and then amalgamized, and then based on where the primary influences are, that's what you get.
Yeah.
I think that's grunge.
Well, there you go. He thinks that Pearl Jam's closer to Springsteen than Alice in Chains. Or maybe Springsteen is more grunge than than Pearl Jam is.
No, I would say that.
Lover on the side of the road. I got a 16 gauge under my clothes. Yeah, 16 gauge. God damn. Get away from that guy.
Yeah.
But then he's all climbing the shit.
Yeah. With just like a microphone cable. That's scary shit, man.
That's nuts.
It's like 40 feet in the air.
But you know why he could do that? He probably weighed like $140 because he was so tiny because he didn't eat. He didn't have money to eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, that's going to do it for the show today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Until next time, we'll see you guys around.
Goodbye.